as a skeptic, my position is not, like when the psychics who claim that they're speaking with the dead.
Right.
My position is not, they're wrong and that's bullshit. My position is they cannot demonstrate that what they're actually doing is what they claim. And so I can't say nobody's been to the other side and communicated back. I can just say there's no reliable evidence for it, and I don't know what shape that evidence would take in order to demonstrate that.
Okay, I want to come back to that because that you've now made to me a very striking claim, namely that we should, I think you're saying, disbelieve all claims for which there is not sufficient evidence.
So,
not just that we should take an agnostic position, but we should disbelieve them. That's two different things.
Oh, so if you mean disbelieve as in believe they are not true, that's the exact opposite of what I just said.
Okay.
What I said was we should believe things when there's evidence for it, and that is both the proposition that the supernatural is real and the proposition that the supernatural is not real.
Okay.
So agnosticism isn't some middle ground between believing X and believing not X. There is no middle ground. You are either convinced of X or you are not convinced of X. And I'm not convinced that the supernatural is real. That doesn't mean that I'm convinced that the supernatural isn't real. It's kind of like if you go into a courtroom,
Okay.
I may have to say not guilty, even if I'm not convinced of innocence, because the burden of proof is on the claim of guilt. And so the people who say, I have good evidential warrant to believe in the supernatural, have adopted a burden of proof, and they have to meet it. And until they do, I am not convinced.
Okay, but let's be clear about what that burden of proof is, because I'm not saying I have definitive proof that God exists or these are his attributes. Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't know if there is a God in the sense of no. I'd call myself a believer. Now, right away we distinguish between a believer and a knower, right?
Sure.
It's an important distinction.
Is a subset of belief.
I believe there's a place called Papua New Guinea because I trust maps and I've studied about it. But I know my brother. I wouldn't say I believe I have a brother because I know the guy. So knowledge.
Are you saying you don't know that there's a Papua New Guinea?
No, I'm saying I know it in the sense that I accept the authorities from which I learn about it.
Sure.
I trust it.
Well,
and if
for
I went
clarity,
there,
it's not just relying on authorities, it's actual evidence. So you have a belief in a proposition.
right?
Whether or not it qualifies as knowledge is a separate question because knowledge is a subset of belief. In philosophy, it would be justified true belief. I tend to use a more kind of colloquial because I'm a dilettante. I'm an uneducated oaf who just talks a lot. But if you have a proposition and you accept that it's true, that's all I mean when I say I believe it. You either accept it or you don't. If I say I know it, all we generally mean, all most people mean when they say I know something is that they really, 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 really believe it. They're talking about the confidence level that they have in that proposition that it is likely true. And when we say I know something, generally we're saying I believe this to the extent that it would be worldview altering to discover it was wrong. And so I believe there's a Papua New Guinea. I would actually argue that I know, I have evidential warrant that there's a Papua New Guinea without actually ever having been there. This is, people used to do the, you don't know there's an Australia. Well, I do now because I've been there. But even before I was there, I think that I had evidential warrant for it.
Yeah, but okay, I agree with that. And I know that there's a Papua New Guinea in that sense. Let's take a different example. Let's say I were to tell you I'm from India. Okay? You have no reason to doubt me. You probably believe I'm from India.
Yeah.
Now, you don't actually know that.
It depends on what you mean by know.
Well,
and
are you 100% sure?
No. Is 100% certainty required for knowledge?
Not necessarily, but
I would
what's
agree.
your bar?
So I don't think you can be 100% certain about anything.
Okay.
Which is why I abandon the notion of certainty, which is why when I talk about knowledge, I talk about it as a subset of belief and that it's a confidence level. But also, I genuinely don't really, I'm unimpressed when someone says they know something because we don't wait till we have knowledge to act. We act in accordance with our beliefs. And whether or not your belief rises to the level of knowledge doesn't change what your action's gonna be.
All right. So let's sort of circle back to where I was going with the three big questions. And I think
we started with death.
You were in violent agreement that the cause, that we don't know, the cause of the universe, we don't know any prescribed purpose for our lives. We try to discover it, but we don't know it. And we don't know what happens after death.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that anything does, but I definitely would agree. We don't know.
Fair enough. Now, let me ask you this question. What do you do about belief when you are in exactly this position? When if something is true, it would have tremendous implications. For example, you would concede that if there was life after death, that would greatly affect the way we think about life on Earth now.
It would.
Depending on what that life looked like.
And depending on whether or not anything in this life had any impact on that life.
Correct.
But
right.
yes.
So let's just say if the religious narratives are correct, and there is some sort of cosmic justice in which, let's just say, the crimes that are the undiscovered crimes of this life have to be accounted for in a future life, we would probably have to start thinking about all the stuff that we get away with in private, because even though we escape human accounting, there would be some sort of presumably divine accounting. So in other words, all I'm trying to establish is that there's a relevance to these questions, even if we don't definitively know anything about them, anything about the answer matters which way we go.
I agree the answer matters. It's just that the answer right now is, I don't know. And you can play the what if game for any one of them. What if there's nothing? What if it's the end? What if there's a being who's going to judge you based on whether or not you fell for things without sufficient evidence? What if that's the criteria?
Okay, so what you seem to say is, I think about something, and if I really can't answer the question, right, I take the default position that that something doesn't exist until evidence shows up that's going to convince me it does.
Of course.
That's your view.
That is sound epistemology, that accepting...
Sound epistemology according to whom? According to you.
Sure. Well, let's go according to me, because I don't need to cite anybody else.
Right.
Because I'm right.